Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, How to Deliver a Consistent Brand Experience to Your Customers. My name is Fiona, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. The webinar will last for approximately 30 minutes. All attendees are on mute, so the only voices you should hear throughout the webinar will be mine and the presenters. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the chat box of the control panel. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll collect these and address as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. I'd like to introduce Jens Lundgaard, founder and CEO at Brandworkz, as well as their client, Chris King, Global Marketing Manager at Transitions Optical, who is here today to share their story. Without delay, I'll hand you over to Jens.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jens Lundgaard, founder and CEO here at Brandworkz. Today I'll be talking about how to deliver a consistent brand experience to your customers. And I'm also delighted that our client, Chris King, a Global Marketing Manager at Transitions Optical, is also here today to share a real-life client story. If you'd like to find us on social media, here are our handles, and also the hashtag for today's webinar, if anybody wants to tweet, is brand experience. So, delivering a strong and consistent brand experience is a challenge that marketers deal with every day. I know from our own experience at our own company, and more importantly, we hear from our clients about their challenges with brand experience on a regular basis. Marketers are, of course, working in a globalized digital world, and there are more channels, more touch points than ever before in which to interact with customers. So, how do we achieve a positive brand experience in this multiplicity of channels? Well, I think the first place to start is by ensuring that everyone in all your internal teams and everybody associated with your businesses understand the fundamental brand vision and values of your company. And by the way, also understand that this shouldn't just be treated as corporate bullshit, so the decisions and actions they make on a daily basis are actually consistent with the visions and values. Those people include every single member of staff within the company, not just sales and marketing, as well as retail partners, external agencies, distributors. Everybody these days is effectively a brand ambassador. I guess they always were, but it's much more visible now. So if we fail to get all the internal teams and third parties to understand our brand, it often results in a confused customer and a poor, inconsistent brand experience. By the end of this webinar, we hope to give you some tips and takeaways to increase your brand's consistency across all channels and touch points so you can deliver outstanding brand experience to your customers. So, what do we mean by brand experience? Well, in marketing, I guess we're all after one thing: space in a consumer's mind. Customers put certain brands above others and in return expect them to deliver on their values and promises, or seen the other way around. If you consistently deliver on your promises and values, then consumers will put you above many of your competitors. So when we talk about brand experience at Brandworkz, we mean it to be the marriage of the brand promise with the customer experience. You can say we believe in a world where marketers can influence the whole company to understand the brand promise and thereby provide customers with an extraordinary brand experience. So customer experience, of course, is the interaction your customers have with your brand at every single touch point, whether it's using your product, visits in branch, or interaction over the phone or online. And the brand promise, on the other side, is the defined vision and values of your organization, which ties into your primary purpose as a business. Why do you exist? And of course, your brand promise should enable you to connect both on a logical level and emotionally with your customers, and of course also be differentiated from your competitors. If it isn't, then defining or maybe even redefining this will of course then be your top priority first, as it's pretty pointless trying to align people behind something which is bland and undifferentiated. it matters more than ever now because the choice of brands within today's market has grown pretty much exponentially over the years in many categories, meaning that the expectation and demands from consumers are increasing as they just simply have so much choice. Consumers now expect brands to be seamless entities that should meet, if not exceed, their expectations. Brands that don't deliver this joined-up, consistent brand experience risk breaking customer promises, and in a competitive marketplace, that can spell disaster for the bottom line. And by the way, talking about bottom line, if your financial director doesn't believe that brand experience is worth some serious consideration or indeed budget, then show him something like this, perhaps change to your industry sector. A consistent, differentiated brand experience is in most categories the most important factor for revenue growth, or revenue protection if you're in a saturated market for that matter. But every company faces the challenge of delivering a consistent brand experience every day because customers hold so much power in their relationships with brands. They have so many ways in which they can interact with the brand and interact with each other to share what kind of experience they've had, good or bad. Nowadays, it's fairly acknowledged that the brand is defined by the whole customer journey, right from the beginning of the sales cycle to the customer's lifetime use of the product, and beyond for that matter. A brand is built not just through a great vision, but also as much through the connection it makes with the customers. As we've said, if a customer doesn't feel a connection with a brand, then it will fail to make it into their consideration. So as we already know, a brand is much more than just a logo, some colors, and a slogan. It's the most valuable, one of the most valuable assets a firm has, and also it gives you a competitive advantage that's really hard for your competitors to replicate. So all of your marketing material, of course, in the different channels like websites, apps, social media, needs to express the brand promise in the right way every time, which is hard enough in itself. However, even if you get that right, if the rest of the business doesn't deliver on the promise that you make in marketing and sales, then frankly, most of your efforts will be wasted because customers will soon enough undo your hard work through bad reviews and interaction on social media. As an example, if marketing is busy communicating that you are selling a really high quality product, but your frontline staff or maybe the support people are perhaps not really sufficiently trained to also deliver a great service, then your work will effectively become unstuck. We probably all tried buying a product which we thought was really great until we needed support for it, only to be funneled out to some kind of outsourced call center where, even though they may be friendly and well-meaning, they just don't seem to get what we're on about in our call for help. Therefore, in my mind, the marketing function is now just as much about educating and aligning internal employees and partners as it is about communicating with external prospects and customers. The brands who get it right, they're the ones who have achieved high alignment across all the business behind a common set of goals and values. They've clearly defined what they stand for and their staff is bought into the brand promise on a meaningful level, not just a superficial level. One of the ways I like to think about this is kind of like an iceberg. The 10% that's visible above the water is the experiences consumers have with the brands directly, but the 90% is really underwater, which is everything that has to happen out of direct view of the customer to deliver a clear, consistent message and experience. As marketers, we need to focus our effort on making sure the process and people are in place to deliver great experience right through the customer journey. Of course, it's not just marketing's responsibility, it's also the top manager, or indeed the top management has the primary responsibility for this, but the execution and implementation of this is often left to marketing or marketing and comms. This is, for instance, making sure that internal teams and all your third parties have access to training materials about the brand story and the overall aim of the company and the correct communications material. So the diagram you can see now illustrates, I guess, on a fairly simple level, very simple level, and in an idealized manner, the relationship between marketing, internal teams, and customers, and the three parts to the framework: the customers, the marketing team, bottom right, and the employees. And all of the parts of the framework revolves around your brand promise. So marketing, and of course also senior management, is responsible for setting the vision or carrying out the vision and the brand promise, which underpins the entire company and which is expressed through both the external marketing material. But the marketing team is highly likely also required to educate and facilitate internal teams to deliver or understand and then deliver on the promises in all their actions. Customers will only become or remain believers in your brand if two things are in place: the promises and messages which they see and the messages resonate with them, and number two, that the product or service actually lives up to those promises. So just before we go any further, I'm just going to launch our poll question. I'll give you a few moments to answer that. Okay, so that should be hopefully a fairly easy question. Not so simple to solve, but let's see what the result is. So you might not see it on screen, but over in the chat panel, you can see that 88% of you have said yes. So, I guess from our experience with client is pretty much the same, and of course you can always do better. So even if you are already in a company that's got high alignment, you can always do better because your competitors are always seeming to do better. So you got to keep ahead of the pack. But yeah, that's great. That it's kind of, well, it's good and bad. Of course, it's not good that there's lots of challenges, but it means that there's lots of work to get on with that can really improve, in the company that you might work in. And it's a real challenge, and personally, I like challenges. So let's find out how one of our clients has solved or helped solve that problem, should I say. So as I said, I'm delighted to have one of our clients, Chris King, Global Marketing Manager at Transitions Optical, here with us today. He's going to tell us in practical terms how he has helped align internal teams and external third parties to the Transitions brand in order to improve brand experience right through the sales chain down to the customer level. So over to you, Chris, to hear the transition story.
Thank you, Jens. Thank you. I'm very excited to talk to you guys today about how we at Transitions Optical empower our internal teams and our external downstream customers with all the marketing materials, the tools, training, everything they need to promote the brand in market. So for this purpose, we use a brand management platform to do this, and we call that the Transitions Hub. But before I get into the hub, I wanted to give you some background on Transitions Optical. We're the leading provider of adaptive lenses worldwide. You may have heard this also as photochromic lenses. Simply put, they're pretty much when going from indoors to outdoor conditions, Transitions lenses automatically darken to help your eyes adjust the changing light better than they would on their own. And so we were the first to manufacture and commercialize plastic adaptive lenses back in 1990. And through product leadership, operational excellence, and of course a strong consumer focus, we've built the Transitions brand into one of the most recognized consumer brands in the optical industry. Beyond traditional TV advertising, we create a lot of print and digital content that's designed to generate demand among prescription eyeglass lens wearers. However, if you've been to the if you've gotten your eyes checked or you kind of know about the process, generating consumer demand is only part of the puzzle, since we don't sell our lenses directly to consumers. We actually sell our lenses directly to lens suppliers, who then in turn will sell them to your local eye care professionals and retail chains. So the key for us is to really empower our internal sales teams and our downstream partners, like those lens suppliers, those retailers, eye care professionals, with all of the brand assets, marketing materials, and education that they need to leverage the Transitions brand with their customers, whether they are industry professionals or patients. So let's take a look at the Transitions Hub homepage. So very importantly, since we deal with several different suppliers, and some of which are competitors, who in turn serve hundreds of thousands of optical industry professionals worldwide, we need a way to quickly and efficiently give the right people the right resources at the right time. Therefore, it's important that the brand asset management platform be permissions-based and customizable to our partners' unique needs. And since launching the platform in the fourth quarter of last year, we've actually created 14 customized hubs for these partners that not only pull content from our central brand hub, as you can kind of see the homepage here, but they also contain co-branded pieces as well. So they have their own little spot within the hub. One of the key functions of the Transitions Hub is to provide on-demand brand education to our external partners and their downstream customers. So this training includes not only marketing best practices and brand guidelines, but also product knowledge, selling skills. It really makes the platform an indispensable tool for our internal sales team, since they work directly with these major lens manufacturers. And these suppliers, having been trained and equipped through the Transitions Hub, they then work with hundreds of thousands of their downstream customers, passing on the appropriate training and other resources, either in person or utilizing the Hub's file share and album features. So this is really critical to maintaining the consistency of our global brand and the clarity of message downstream and also internally. Of equal importance is providing our internal in-country marketing and PR teams and agencies access to our brand assets, guidelines, and the best practices that go along with them. The site is designed to educate them about the Transitions Optical brand and what it stands for. Our brand assets section is designed to not only provide access to our branding, screen graphics, typography, but also to our guidelines and best practices. So this ensures that any communications are consistently on brand. Our guidelines include things you might expect: positioning, claims, and our brand's visual identity. We've been pleasantly surprised to find that our guidelines have consistently been some of the top assets downloaded on the Transitions Hub. And this brings me to my first takeaway. The first takeaway is that we should educate every individual employee and third party so they are aligned to the brand. We found that when you give people the tools that they need to do their jobs faster and more effectively, you encourage people to embed the brand in their everyday jobs and enable them to deliver the right brand experience consistently, no matter how light their touch may be with your end customer. So the Transitions Hub is a high priority for us and our business because it is a sales enabler and a brand builder in the absence of a sales team, and really works with our downstream, or in absence of having a sales team that works directly with our downstream industry professionals. It's a great tool to equip them and empower them as well. So the intuitive, the on-brand user interface, it's ideal for our users who are mostly non-technical and they simply just want access to the brand and training as quickly as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, we deal with several different suppliers, some of which are competitors and all of which have a unique approach to the market. The structure of the Transitions Hub really enables these suppliers to log into their own customized area of the site, and this area is uniquely co-branded as Transitions, but also the partner brand as well. So only the co-branded marketing materials that are relevant to each partner can be seen and downloaded and accessed by that partner. So there's no confusion about what collateral can be used, and there's no risk of human error of somebody being able to access something they're not supposed to. So it's important to provide this customized space because it creates a sense of ownership, of brand ownership with those downstream partners. These customized transitions hubs are effectively co-owned with their partner and are branded as such. So you can kind of see here an example of just one way we've done that on screen. Since every partner has a unique go-to-market strategy, how they use their hub and who has access to it might vary. But no matter what the approach is, the Transitions Hub delivers a brand experience that provides critical information about the brand, its promise, its values, its guidelines, along with the images, photography, videos, and marketing campaigns, so users know how to use them effectively as they gain access to them. Enabling these partners with the tools and training they need to deliver value, improve brand experience, and influence perception downstream leads me to takeaway number 2, which is to enable your partners and employees to become your best brand ambassadors. Your internal teams and your external partners are truly the most important ambassadors you have. The key to aligning these ambassadors with your brand is to continuously give them a compelling reason to experience and engage with your brand. Brand training, education, point-of-sale material, all of these things are critical to having a shared voice at the point of purchase. And the Transitions Hub, for us, is the primary conduit we use to not only stay top of mind for those industry professionals, but also to make brand advocacy easy for them by providing on-demand access to the latest materials. So, for example, one of the ways we've created a brand experience for end users and industry professionals is a digital tool we call the Transitions Viewer. The Transitions Viewer lets you experience a 360-degree view of as if you're looking through a transitions lens in a variety of lighting conditions. So on the Transitions Hub, our brand ambassadors can download additional collateral to promote this resource leading up to and during the point of purchase, such as digital videos, print, and other sales tools. We provide many different types of files, so multi-page PowerPoints, PDFs, Word documents, sales sheets, videos, and so on, that can be viewed within the platform page by page without the need to download them first. So it makes it really easy for our end users to find what they need and to access it or share it. Press and PR teams are able to give journalists access only to specific relevant areas of the site, and agencies can download those assets to create artwork before sending them for approval to marketing. Overall, the Transitions Hub really makes it possible for our brand to be represented consistently to our internal teams, our external partners, and our customers across the globe. We've learned that if your teams want to push your message and you don't give them the materials they need, they'll simply create their own, which may not be consistent with your current messaging or your campaign objectives. With the Transitions Hub, we can share the best practices, the content, or research we have available with everyone to ensure that what is being created is not only brand compliant, but also effective. So that brings me to our final takeaway, which is to enforce compliance across your communication. And this is possible to do without making it a large, hugely cumbersome process for everyone. If you make it easy for people, for the right people to find the right resources, then they'll use it at the right time. Additionally, since the Transitions Hub is this self-serve resource, you can free up a lot of time for your internal team to focus on developing new creative and messaging that are really informed by the usage data that you're able to pull from the Transitions Hub. So just to kind of summarize some of the outcomes we've seen since launching the Transitions Hub, we've seen productivity among our marketing team has increased because assets can now be accessed instantly by our partners and our internal teams, and we aren't spending an excessive amount of time fielding requests. We've seen accuracy, so we've with automatic image and video transcoding, materials can be downloaded in the correct format for a particular person's use at just one click. So when people use the correct branding, it stays correct. And sharing materials between markets has improved a lot, being able to lower costs as well. For instance, materials that are developed by our European team can be repurposed at a much lower cost by the U.S. team, rather than investing in their own identical creative. It's just a matter of localizing that content. We found that central marketing is better able to control brand consistency without giving the sales, or while giving the sales partner and our country marketers the guidelines and materials they'll need to do their jobs more effectively and more efficiently. And finally, we've seen that costs have been cut because assets are reused and they're no longer lost or misplaced or hiding somewhere on somebody's hard drive. We have everything in one spot, the latest available right there. So those are some of the outcomes that we've seen so far. We're very excited about the future of the Transitions Hub, and from here I'll turn it back over to Jens.
That's really great, Chris. Thanks very much. It would be lovely to have more time to get into more depth, but I guess we just need to sort of wrap up to have the Q&A. So I'm just going to do a quick kind of summary, for our key takeaways to delivering a great brand experience. Educate every individual employees, or give them the tools to educate themselves in many cases, because you can't go around and speak to everybody in the company if it's a medium or large company. That's just not possible. To make it easy for them to understand what the brand vision and values are. Number two, enable your employees to become your best brand ambassadors. As Chris saying, give them an on-brand, easy to use platform to engage and train them, and also the tools, to then produce material. As Chris said, people really want to do a great job. It's just, most people anyway, I find, it's just that, if they don't have the right tools, or if they need something immediately, they're typically forced to produce stuff ad hoc, and, invariably it'll be substandard or inconsistent, and send the wrong message out, or, a weak message. Number three, enforce brand compliance across your communication. I guess, enforce is maybe a little bit of a strong word, because, again, it has to be, coupled with ease of use. People are going to rebel if you are trying to get approval for absolutely everything, or you're making it super cumbersome to get it. So you got to, again, it's about tools that makes it easy, to follow the rules, and, create communication in a really easy and timely manner that follows the brand, and ultimately delivers a consistent brand experience on the communications front. So thanks very much for listening. We'll get into our Q&A now. And as I said, if you'd like to get in touch after the webinar, the details are on screen. Well, I guess they're not, but they will be in a second.
That's great. Thank you very much to Jens and Chris, and thank you for everyone so far. We're just going to answer a few of the questions that have been submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit your questions via the chat box in the attendee control panel. So the first question, you've talked a lot about how third-party partners would use the platform. How would others in the business get value out of this, apart from just using it to educate them?
Chris, do you want to do that one?
Yes, sorry, I placed myself on mute there. Yeah, so I think that with a tool like this, it's not just about, I like to think of it, it's not just the storehouse for your brand assets, your brand materials. It's this vehicle that you're able to communicate with anybody with. And so I think that has lots of different applications if you can lay it out in a way that they can use it. And so for us, we've ended up using it with operations, with customer service. So beyond sales and marketing teams, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to increase communication just by using it to be able to share some of those critical resources. And I'm kind of one of the people that ascribe to that belief that all of marketing is education, at least good marketing is. So you're always trying to inform and trying to educate. And so education is a big part of it, yes, but communication and just getting that out there as well is also a big part as well.
Perfect. And how do you encourage people to use a system like the one you've described?
I think there's a lot of ways. At least there's a lot of ways we have. As I mentioned before, we work with several different partners, and they all have different go-to-market strategies. And so some lend themselves to more digital strategies where you're maybe using an email blast to get them to sign up, or doing some online training that then enables access for them in some way. that triggers in there. But good old-fashioned, sell sheets and print material as well has been very, very nice. For a salesperson to go in and say, here's access to this material, I think is a big plus for some of our partners to be able to offer to their customers.
Perfect. And how does the brand image and symbol influence an organization's corporate reputation?
Yeah, I can say something on that, I guess. I mean, I guess as I said earlier, the logo and symbol or whatever sort of visual devices we have, are kind of meaningless, or most of the time it's pretty meaningless without the whole company being behind it. Carphone Warehouse, in example from the UK here, didn't sell car phones for more than a couple of years until mobile phones, but people didn't even sort of equate Carphone Warehouse to the car. So it to a lot of to a large extent of course the visual language should represent the brand, and that's super important, but it's equally important that the whole company pours the right experiences into that. Apple has great iconography and super slick photography and things, but if the whole of the rest of the company wasn't backing that up, people will probably just think that it was charlatans, because how dare they say that everything is marvelous if it actually wasn't. But of course it is, because it's the whole company is obsessed and pulling in the same direction. So not quite sure if that answered the question, but I guess that's one answer.
Perfect, thank you. Rebecca's asking, how can I work with management to decide on a brand promise?
Yes. Well, I think I've been involved in about 50 rebrands. That's why my cheeks are super sunken now, and I wouldn't say I got actual scars on my back, but probably mental. I used to actually work for a brand agency, a large one called Brand Union, way back, and also somebody that's now called Corporate Edge. It's always really difficult once you're doing your own stuff, and defining who you're about. So if there isn't, if the founder had a great vision, and it's super clear to everybody what the mission is, and it's more than just make lots of money, because that's not really a vision, that's just an outcome. That's really an outcome of something where they did try to change the world in some way or another. If you need to actually define what that is, or maybe redefine it, because what you're doing now is largely irrelevant, or maybe the competitors have caught up. Yeah, external. I mean, we're not an agency, but there's a lot of great branding agencies that help you, redefine what you stand for. So certainly, we work. Our tool is kind of pointless, as I said earlier. If there isn't a clear vision, and then the marketing material flows from that vision, because otherwise you're just producing pretty pictures. So certainly, if there isn't budget to do something meaningful, I guess with an agency would be the natural choice, a branding agency or brand strategy agency first of all, before the implementation. Then I guess something like the coffee cup slide that actually says, look guys, if you're not differentiated, if we don't have a crystal clear vision, how are we expected to tell our clients that they should buy us instead of the 10 other competitors that are producing in the same category? And remind them that competitor X is charging 50% more than you for seemingly the same product. I'm not saying that's the case, but that is typically the case. If people don't have a really clear, differentiated reason for being, then you're really in a price war at the lower end of the market typically, and that's not great for profits. So if there isn't a sort of differentiated reason for being, you can kind of reverse engineer one, I think, because or there might have been a reason for being in the first place, but that's largely irrelevant now. I mean, if you're producing, cameras to, even digital cameras, I mean, you're going to be largely irrelevant because every single picture, or 90%, is going to be taken on the phone. So reinvention is very hard, but there's quite a lot of, if whoever's asking the question wants to get in contact, there's quite a lot of case studies and examples where if people don't do that, then they basically just go bust, like Kodak, for instance, producing film for cameras in the old days, and now they don't exist anymore. So we can certainly, if somebody gets in contact, we can certainly come up with some great, some great case studies that you could show maybe the top management and saying, look, guys, if you don't do this, not necessarily your debts, but something like that. Also, I mean, statistics, of course, we haven't even talked about digital experience. Of course, everybody's interaction through, apps and AI-based bots in the future. Everything is going to change just as much in the next 10 years as they have in the last 10 years. So everybody will have to transform. So, history doesn't seem to tell us much, but certainly we can certainly try and make history, tell us something where the transformation that the world or maybe your industry has been through in the last 10 years, that's not going to slow down. If anything, it's going to speed up. Try and draw correlations to the past and say, hey, we did this 10 years ago. That's completely different to what we did now. If we don't change again and stay relevant, then somebody else is going to do it. So I guess that's a couple of pointers. Sorry for the long answer.
Thank you. No, that's great, thanks. We've got quite a few people actually asking about how to align employees with the brand. So, as an example, how do you communicate the brand promise to internal staff, and how do you ensure those that have previously been kind of reticent or resistant to the ideas of the brand, how do you engage those internal stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear what Chris had got to say, but a sort of couple of things for me, I guess. I mean, we are software, providers. So as I said, we're not agency. We're not the people that go out and evangelize on a personal level. There's got to be somebody in the company doing that. Of course, the CEO is really the top evangelizer for that. So if he or she isn't bought into that, then frankly, it's an uphill struggle. But also if it's a medium or large company, then there's no way you can get around and talk to everybody in person and try and educate them, or there's new people being hired all the time in large companies. So certainly one thing that a lot of our clients are using it actually as an induction tool. So there's one section of the sort of web-based portal which is actually induction, both for agencies, partners, but also employees, where as part of their induction into the company, they have to go through this, which is a super low-cost version of getting people to understand what the company actually stands for. It's not going to be as effective as in person, but large companies, they're not going to hire 100 people to go around being, internal brand evangelists. So, having a digital tool, really helps. And people want to believe in something. Not many people go to work just to make a living. There are some people that do that, but a lot of people like to think that the company they work for stands for something. So, just one example, in the US, a large healthcare company called Aetna, they got about 30,000 employees. The sort of induction section that we have has been viewed by 25,000 people over the last couple of years, and I think you find that if it's made part of the induction and also the intranet and single sign-on, so it's not people don't have to sort of register and all that boring stuff, then that's a good start. Of course, having an internal brand champion that flies around the world or travels around England or whatever is equally important. And some videos on the homepage from the CEO reiterating how important this is for the company is certainly also won't go amiss. So, Chris, I don't know what you found on that front.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question, and I think if you can really get that right, get internal teams aligned with your brand promise and your brand, it can really unlock a lot for you for your business. And And really, speaking to what we do at Transitions, but also in just some of my previous experience as well, it's all about helping people understand their role within that brand. And what I mean by that is a brand is much bigger than just something that marketing dreamed up, to sell a product. That's not what brand is. Brand is the goodwill that you as a collective organization have built up with customers, with the industry, of quality products, of forward thinking, being able to know consumer insights, know what they want, and be able to provide that, having a nice innovation pipeline. So your brand really encompasses your entire organization. And if you have training or things in place with HR, that they're able to have that as part of the induction for new employees, but also on the, as Jens said, with the CEO, having those regular touch points, seeing how important that is at the top. But I think that's where brand promise really comes in, because when people understand what they're selling, what they're doing, it really makes a big impact and how it affects things. There's tons of case studies out there, but I'm just reminded of the one of someone's working in the manufacturing line, and they may not understand their role within that manufacturing line, but if you're able to show them how that end product affects the person or the patient, in our case, get to see them interact with a child that's actually wearing the lenses and getting the protection and the comfort from them, it makes a huge impact on their engagement with the brand. And that's top down. You can find that throughput there. So it's a matter of finding those lanes of communication. And for us, the Transitions Hub is one of those lanes. It's a big lane for us, to be able to connect all the organization. But there's a lot of others as well. Your website, employee or company meetings or memos, or any way your company communicates, I think, is an opportunity to be able to show them their place within the brand.
Okay, great, thank you. We've actually got another question for Chris. Does Transition, the platform, provide tools like email campaign management, or do they use their own? And does the hub provide brand collateral?
Yes. So I'm gonna work backwards. So the brand collateral, absolutely. So we have different brand assets. I mean, it's not just logos; it's also our model imagery. There's lots of product shots as well. Anything I like to call the brand assets the ingredients. So if you're an agency or your marketing team and you want to put together a campaign on behalf of Transitions, we try to make it very easy for you to do. And so it's just a matter of then running it by our central marketing team for approval. And so definitely, yes, we have plenty of that on there. As far as email campaigns go, that's kind of a tough question for us because we already have something in place. And I may let Jens maybe speak to that as far as what the tool can do in that regard. Just because we don't currently use the function doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But we had kind of already had something in place with built up list of users and that we kind of maintain through our internal CRM system.
Yeah, so I guess the simple answer is no. I mean, we are sort of upstream from the execution software, if you like, where it's executing emails or social media campaigns that are lined up in a timed manner and stuff like that. But I guess one thing that's really hard for sort of medium and large companies and even small companies, a typical marketing company will probably have 10 different pieces of software that they're using for marketing, whether they think of it as marketing or not, whether it's a software or not, whether it's even AdWords is a software platform if you're doing banner ads and AdWords and stuff like that, of course your CMS system, your email. So a bigger and bigger problem is coordinating and getting the content to those systems. So one of the things that we find that clients are increasingly asking us about is integration, where we become, what we like, we call it the content hub of the marketing ecosystem. A little bit grand. That's the marketing software ecosystem, of course, and humans. So there's just as many other pieces of software that needs the content, and not just humans. So it's really hard to make sure that all the latest assets and up-to-date messaging and text and stuff is on your website and in the emails and in social media and on Pinterest and on other social media platforms. So and in the sales, in Salesforce. So I guess integration with those is where we stop. But I still think that's very valuable, because a lot of execution platforms aren't necessarily great at doing that stuff, and also it's a lot of manpower needed to make sure that everything's up to date and kind of fed with the latest content. So that's kind of where we fit.
That's great, thank you. I've got time for one more question. A question for Chris. Do you monitor third-party usage of your branding, and have you ever encountered situations where your branding has been tampered with?
That's a great question. Very great question. Yes, so absolutely. And I kind of mentioned it just kind of casually within the presentation of, even internally, you may have people that kind of break away from what you would prefer in your branding guidelines, especially once you start localizing some campaign content for a particular market. It can be difficult. So I actually feel like that's where providing the guidelines alongside the resources actually helps us out a lot better now to mitigate any misuse of the brand. Of course, we have a whole legal department, dedicated to preserving the brand just as much, and has their role within the brand as well. But just from a marketing and a best practices, we try to deliver. And when I say education, I don't just mean like compliance. We've all taken the compliance training where it's rather boring, and you don't see a lot of times the immediate need to do anything with it. We're talking more aspirational training and very short presentations or things that are delivered as they're trying to create a piece. If they're working on an advertisement, then it's a real simple, maybe 1 or 2 sheet guideline with a clear contact for them to be able to follow up with if they have any questions on how to do it. So we found that if we train people to get the resources from the hub, then we can deliver the education at the same time. Whereas before, it may be, as I mentioned, it might be on somebody's hard drive or come directly from an agency, and that may not always be accompanied by your correct usage guidelines. So I think that's where an asset management system that can deliver the education along beside the resources is kind of critical to that.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. I guess there's a third sort of, well, in software terms, or sort of tools in your toolbox. Definitely brand guidelines and the sort of raw ingredients like images and logos and stuff like that. But really that's for the agencies and graphics professionals, if you like, because even though it's a massive step up to provide that, it can still be put together in horrendous ways as people that are probably only well aware, especially if they got international partners. So I guess giving some tools for customizable templates for banner ads and print and stuff like that, where people, again, out in local markets, if it's an international company, people want to follow they generally want to follow it and make stuff on brand, but it's just that they need something in half an hour, or they don't have any budget to go off to an agency and do it. So providing templates that can be customized or localized super easily through a web platform, I guess that really also helps. If you have a decentralized production of communication material rather than super centralized. And of course, the ones that do have a super centralized function will typically find that actually a lot of markets are rebelling, probably slightly in secret, because they can't wait for central to create everything. So I think templates that are sort of customizable by local markets is certainly a sort of really useful tool as well to make it easy and cheap for them to do the right thing.
That's great. Thank you very much to Jens and Chris, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd appreciate it if you could complete that and provide your feedback. You'll also receive a follow-up email within the next couple of days with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. On behalf of CIM and Brandworkz, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.